A political analyst, Mayokon Ilo, joins me in the studio now for more on this. It's now a case of NFIU versus state governors. Do we see a winner in this?
They are both winners, and maybe some of them will lose.
Let's explain.
I think the governors will go to court. The constitution will back them to the extent that they are supposed to jointly allocate those resources. The local governments cannot act independently. Until then, the NFIU has a lot of sway, because until the Supreme Court decides, we will see the impact that direct allocation will have on development. If they can make a good show of it, then public sentiment can trigger maybe constitutional changes. But in the meantime, what has to be done has to be done. The NFIU too should also liaise with the local government chairman and possibly with the presidency for a scorecard on how state governors have appropriated resources that accrue to local governments over the years. They should force them. Ultimately, we might have a deal that will be in the interest of Nigeria as a whole.
Because as it is now, what is likely to happen is if it's the NFIU that goes to court, then it might be a stay of execution, and that means that we'll return to status quo, and there might not be that opportunity you're talking about for us to see how the local government would fare administering their own funds themselves.
You mean if it is the governors that go to court?
That go to court.
Stay of execution, before they do that, if they do it before June 1, they can force them to a stalemate. But if after June 1, then status quo means now that we are doing direct allocations. Or they can stop the allocation altogether until everybody comes to the bargaining table.
Okay, the governors want the president to wade into this matter. What do you think would be or should be the president's stance?
The president should ask them why they want it in the manner in which they want it. They are not keeping their end of the bargain. The Constitution allows them to also make funds available into that joint account. What has been happening is that governors have believed that, okay, they are solely the ones in charge of those resources. They are using it the way they want. People are not happy. The areas are not developing. Local governments are the worse off for it, because there are some things that naturally should be at the call of local governments to fix. Because there are no funds, they all wait for the state governors to do it, and the governors are not really doing what they are expected to do. So their call is selfish insofar as they are not using the funds for the reason for which the funds are meant. It's a joint allocation. It doesn't mean that you have the power to unilaterally determine how it's to be spent.
Right. So let's talk about the components of this autonomy, because it is one matter, local government autonomy is one matter that we've talked about for so long and that people have looked forward to. So it's surprising that now that it's coming, there are some kinds of disagreement or disaffection about it.
Normally, when you have a constitution, it's a living document. Once you have issues over time, you begin to ask yourself, what can we do? Like the way we have a doctrine of necessity when we had a president who was sick. There is need for a change in our constitution to allow for a full autonomy. The autonomy is not full insofar as there are governors that are poking their eyes into how funds have been spent. And another thing I would say is we should make political corruption a federal crime in Nigeria. It doesn't matter whether it's at the local government or at the state level, because governors feel that as long as, okay, they have this power and they have immunity, they can do whatever they need to be done, But if we look at corruption holistically, then whether it's 500,000 or 5 billion, if you steal funds that are not meant for you or you misappropriate it, you should answer for it.
All right, Maya Koilo, a political analyst. It's good to have you on TVC Breakfast.
You're welcome, ma'am.
And a political analyst, Mayokun Ilo, joins me now in the studio to take a look at this. Now, Mayokun, it's good to have you join me this morning. We hear the governor of Zamfara State, the chairman of Governors Forum, has written a petition to the president. What can the president do in this case?
He will listen to them. They represent an organ of government that is maybe equally as powerful within the federating unit. So he will have to listen to them. But that doesn't mean he will do what they want. I looked at the argument by the NFIU CEO, Mr. Modibo. He said the joint account is a transitional account, meaning it's just for you to be aware, not to be the one spending the money on behalf of the local government. You have your own funds, for crying out loud. So we found out that over the years, the governors have taken on them the prerogative of spending the money accruing to the local governments, that this shouldn't be the case. And what was the motivation for NFIU? According to them, they've been having issues with international financial institutions based on illicit financial flows. Normally, throughout the world, it's reported that about $80 billion of funds find themselves across countries illegally. And you might be surprised to find out that 21% of that money comes from Nigeria. It's, we have like 214, 15 countries in the world, and 20% of something bad is actually coming from Nigeria. So if action is not taken now, definitely we can be blacklisted. There used to be a time that we can't use our credit cards outside this country. We don't want to go back to those areas.
Now, is the Constitution that is supposed to map out the laws concerning this, is the Constitution really vague? Because both sides are quoting sections of the Constitution to back
the Constitution is to a large extent on this vague. Okay. There are loopholes that need to be addressed. It's a good thing that the lawmakers are tilting on the side of NFIU at the present instance, but that doesn't mean they will win in the Supreme Court. Right. We've had issues where
the court has the ultimate power to interpret this
to interpret it. But it depends on the prayer you are asking the court for. Okay. The governor will say interpret whether NFIU has the power to send money directly to local governments. Okay. Then FIU will now say interpret whether the governors have the power to spend money on behalf of local government. So that is where
there are words against each other from the Constitution. All right, Mayokunilo, thank you so much for giving us enlightenment on this.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.